and welcome to the Inforunners podcast. My name is Myre, and today I'm joined by the one and only Execute and Algared. Today we're talking about death, the final frontier. So, welcome, guys, to your podcast.
So this topic came about from a very old post in our brainstorming sessions, and the question at the time was, why would anyone fly a Drake spaceship with permadeath? And so basically working that idea through, we've kind of come to this episode, which is kind of the reason we feel that permadeath may need to change a bit or may not need to change, depending on, there's a couple of different ways they can go at it, and we're gonna kind of talk that through. So I guess we kind of start with, what is the current perception of death of a spaceman? Algared, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'm going to start with going to, why would you fly a Drake ship anyway?
Okay,
with
go for it.
permadeath. And some of the reasons I always thought of was, well, it's a game, so it doesn't matter anyway. But it doesn't have life pods. I know unless I'm in a fighter, I'm not gonna get out of my seat and move to the life pod quick enough before a ship blows up. And so, who cares anyway? So, the life pods didn't really matter. So that was why fly a Drake ship anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone, you guys thoughts on that before I move into that?
I'll let you take that one.
Death of a Spaceman, that one.
So, like, why fly a Drake ship?
Yep.
In the first place? Well, I mean, we don't necessarily know exactly where they're going to be going with it. It doesn't have life pods like a Vanguard, it doesn't have an ejection seat either, so it's technically a death trap. But we don't necessarily know how player death is going to work and how easy it is to die. And I guess a fix for that, and I think we touched upon it just before we started, was that there could be a down but not out state for the ship where yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, I think it kind of moved on. The discussion kind of moved on from the Drake stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't really want to say anything, because it actually kind of, it moved more to this. So we started talking about time to disable. And that's why I just skipped over it, because I thought you'd picked up on that, but that's okay.
I did, but I still wanted to have a look at that. Why would people want to?
Because they like pirates, duh. But anyway,
but it was more than that. The idea of, well, in permadeath it didn't matter because you're not going to get to the life pods anyway. As a game, who cares? My air inherits anyway. So all of those reasons just made reasons why people would fly a Drake ship. Part of that whole question, they comes out of the idea of death of a spaceman, which is the idea that you would have so many lives, and eventually, every time you died, you'd wake up at a hospital, and then at one point you'd die, and you'd wake up looking at the funeral as you'd the heir of the poorly departed, and you'd be inheriting all their equipment.
I remember them talking about, when you create your character, you'd also make your own last name and do your will and testament. So when you finally do die, you're actually creating your next player as well. I thought that was kind of interesting.
It'll likely be how Star Wars The Old Republic does it, the way like you choose a last name, and then like everybody knows you by the last name, and then the first name is just incidental based on the tune you are at the moment.
Yeah, so in my case, all the characters are going to be called Execute. Jane Execute, John Execute, all that stuff. Okay, right, okay.
Mook Executes or something,
All right, I'll come up with something, don't you worry. And so obviously, this was all Death of a Spaceman all really happened before a lot of the stuff was coming into the game. We've had all the procedural worlds come in. It was just going to literally be landing zones and no big planets, and now we've got all that stuff. And the real key one is first-person shooter module, so to speak, and that's come in now, and we're looking at things like theaters of war and all that. And obviously, in a first-person shooter, you die a lot more frequently. Now, how are you going to take that dying more frequently when Death of a Spaceman saying you might have up to, I don't know, I'm going to pick a number, 5 lives, and when you die, you move over to this person. So that's a real juxtaposition that just doesn't work with each other. And that's the problem that we're at today, and how we think they're going to solve that. And we came up with several different ones, and we're going to kind of go through them now. So the first one was, I guess we kind of need to explain, ships at the moment are basically you shoot them and they explode. But that whole thing they've talked about several times is going to a disable thing, and that balances really, really well. But then when you're in a first-person shooter, how do you explain the reasoning, I guess, if it was applied to humans? So is it going to be a kill thing, or is it going to be disabling humans? And that's kind of the question we came to. And then one of the ones I came up with was, well, what if they had some kind of accident? You know how like there was the Geneva Convention, that's what I used at the time. And I said, what if there was an incident that made it so that they made the weapons less lethal? And a little bit became trying to think of a reason why they did it. We even talked about the hulls of ships. Maybe they realised a lot of people kept dying, so the incident could have been a high bit innocents were killed at a space station because someone shot out the wall, and so they changed the weapons or changed the rules around weapons to try and not kill lots of people.
I mean, Star Citizen is kind of riddled with all these things in the lore. The lore team are there to basically hand wave and like to move things in a direction to like explain these kinds of things. And they've done this before with like AI. And the reason why your ship isn't intelligent, insofar as they can make intelligent things, is that they've lost in 3 occasions like stealth bombers, like cruise ships and stuff have gone missing because and they have been we don't know the reason why, but like we know in all those incidences they've all had AI and they've all disappeared. So I guess you could find excuses as to maybe they don't maybe they got in the way of Star Wars, where disruptor rifles are illegal within the universe. They exist, but you don't really see people like vaporized unless of course you're watching certain TV shows. Like I like your idea, but I can also see it maybe you could also explain it as like maybe being like an arms race, like throughout history, right? Like we've made guns, but we've also like we've made defenses, right? So maybe even the canopies of your spaceships are like not glass, they're like some kind of metal alloy that's transparent. So it could just be that that like it could just be that they haven't necessarily made the weapons weaker, but like things like the ships are like just that strong now. Because we still have ship ballistics, and ship ballistics are used on other ships.
So
but then that raises the question, that's fine for ships, but then when you apply it to humans or apply it to the FPS combat, that doesn't quite tally up as well. And one of the thoughts we thought about that is, in foot battles, in FPS battles, you're going to have greater death, you're going to have greater casualties. Is that then impacting on the value of medical gameplay? And does that mean the medical gameplay has to be like on point?
And so we kind of came to this realization that there's 2 ways it can go. You've either got to make it so that medical and repair are kind of the same, where they both have this time to disable. And then Myre had a really cool idea where you could actually keep it separate, and I'll let you share that, Myre, because yours was really cool. Do you remember what you were talking about? Okay, cool.
So when we're discussing this, basically I brought up the point that like Star Citizen, even though it's like a space, like whatever space sim, it's at its core, it's an MMO. And how all MMOs do life and death is that when you die, even if like you're past your down but not out state, you're there. As a player, you see your corpse or whatever, and you're there. And then somebody else, like a priest or somebody, can come and resurrect you. So I was saying, well, this is an MMO too, right? So I mean, surely that could just be a way of doing it, as long as you don't choose to, release your spirit or to be, to fast forward time and wake up in a hospital. You can be picked up. You can be dragged, body dragging mechanics are coming in. Cutlass Red is losing, respawn. So like they could then use that and make the Cutlass Red an actual ambulance now. People who are taken out, they can be like a beacon, and they can choose to wait, and somebody else can come and drag them to the Red, who can then heal them up until they can go back to town to like
making the Red great again.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a lore reason for that you gave that I really liked was that you could literally be really dead for 5 to 10 minutes and then brought back because of medical advancements into the future. And then we went to the next step forward, and I'll let you tell that as well.
Well, even with that, because there are games where that time frame, they often have a timer on that, on their dead and waiting for the that, either you could go straight away, you can wait 10 minutes or 15 minutes for someone to come along. So
Yeah.
some games still have that timer on it as well. Others don't have that timer. As long as you wait there and don't respawn, someone could come along and fix you up.
Yeah.
And early on, they did talk about if you were captured in a bounty, you could choose to go back and just go to prison.
Yeah.
You could hope that your friends come and save you. So that kind of idea does kind of fit with the way they were at least thinking way back in 2014, 2013.
It's that same mindset, really. I mean, like, it's all about. I mean, yeah, sure. There's death of a spaceman. So, like, if you say, okay, I'm dead, then there's that roll of a death saving throw, and you might be dead, you might be alive, or whatever. But like when you're captured by a bounty hunter, they've said that they want the player to still have the agency to say, I want to fast forward time and just wake up in jail, please. Or you can stay in that prison cell and then maybe be rescued by a friend or by an NPC coming along who's seen that thing happen. So yeah.
The part I liked,
or die when their ship gets blown up by your friends trying to save you.
That could happen too, and then there's more death of a spaceman to deal with. But I like the idea of I mean, if I've noticed that Execute, you like to bring things into to try and make the universe alive. We're trying to put in some lore and some explanations. So I mean, you could always say, Call of Duty, when you die or whatever, there's a timer when you're dead to be resurrected. In this game, you could maybe not have the timer and then suspend your disbelief by saying, well, me and my patience waiting here for my character to be resurrected is my character's will to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't always use lore. In fact, a lot of the time I don't, but I just know that this game has a lot of lore behind it, and so lore does carry a lot of weight in this game. In normal game discussion, gameplay trumps all. But
I'm not actually a lore nerd, I swear.
No, it's all good. But the one
he's not. It's usually me and Paul or Paul and I who are the lore nerds, and Execute's going, what? Wow, what?
Yeah.
What?
So,
Really?
so I actually want to go back to what I was saying about the actual where you were talking about 5 to 10 minutes of death, and an actual lore reason behind that is obviously the medical advancements have increased, and you've got all that extra time. But then the next part of that you brought up was true death, like in the TV show
in
Altered Carbon. So you could be a real dick in the game, and you could go up and chop someone's head off and take their head, and then they can't be revived. And that's kind of like a little bit like in Eve, where you shoot someone's pod. The same thing. So, like, if they cut you all up into pieces, maybe you can be put back together.
Chuck you in a reclaimer and recycle you.
Yeah, but if they actually vaporize your head or something like that, there is ways that they can kill you. So, the real death, as you called it. Yeah.
Yeah, in many sci-fi shows and stuff, there is this concept of humans today, they're so fragile. Like human in the future, you just press a button and stick a pen drive in their backside and they're alive again, right? So I feel like that could exist easily in Star Citizen in a way that would make it so that you could not necessarily just die. We've had it in Star Trek, we've had it in Altered Carbon and that kind of stuff. And I don't see why they couldn't do it for the sake of the game, but then also give you as a player the ability to real death them, like as they say in Altered Carbon. So an example that comes to mind, we have a firefight on the ground, right? And I shoot you out or you shoot me out or whatever, and I'm on the ground and you walk up to me and you can see that my body is dead. You can loot me or whatever. Now you can also just pull out your coda and bang, bang in the head like a few more times and then real death. But then there's a paragraph in the Death of a Spaceman article where real deathing somebody like that, it makes you, I think, a real dick or whatever Chris says, like you're pure scum. I think it is. Yeah. Chris says like real deathing people is makes you pure scum. So if Chris and his vision is like if you real death somebody, you're pure scum, then you can only imagine that
the penalties that will come along with that.
Exactly. So
and then we've got the third way we thought of, which was if you were able to die frequently, a way you could get around it is also a little bit like Altered Carbon, where it's very expensive to bring somebody back. But if you're working for the army, the UEE, or you're working for an org or a corporation, they pay for your respawns. And so therefore, while you're in a military contract or in a first-person environment, there's a way to rapidly bring you back, or a different technology where you come back more frequently.
Yeah.
which isn't taking that penalty of casualties you've taken towards your first death.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's an in-game precedent for it. I mean, like, it's NPC guilds, right? And
Yep.
we have the first iteration of it, or at least the first example of it being inside the universe, coming in 3.11 with the cargo holders guild. You can go to the guild kiosk. You can't talk to the guy yet or anything, but like so you can easily say, like, maybe in the future there could be like a bounty hunting guild or like a Marines guild or something where you can go there, you can sign up, and once you're signed up, then you're protected to a degree, the same way like ships are protected with insurance, and there'll be multiple kinds of insurance. When they sold, I think, the Razor, they talked about like racing insurance and getting your ship back better and faster whenever it's scrapped, right? So maybe as a Marine, you're protected from from death or permadeath up
Yep.
until a new character. But if you crash your ship racing and you weren't part of the racing guild, then it's the same thing. Like there must be protections like that because of the way the game is.
Now, I don't know about you two, but I think that's probably, I don't know, for me, that feels like the weakest of the three options we've talked about.
Yeah.
I
It'd
don't
be
know.
nice to see them all together. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yep.
I think they're stronger together than they are like on their own.
And that's the funny thing is, I actually can see them all working together in a really weird way.
100%.
So maybe it is a hybrid of all three, and that's not always the case when we have these concepts. But I actually think that that's probably what they'll do. It'll be an amalgamation to some degree of all those three and balancing to again come to what is always important in games. The core part of the game is fun. So whatever's the most fun is what they'll go with. And you gonna say, Algared?
I was just going to say, while we were looking at that, one of the things we talked about in the pre-show in terms of medical gameplay and how it changes this was how does the Endeavour Hope with its respawn ability, is that, are you giving up hope and going to
giving up hope
at that point? Oh, that was a bad pun.
Yeah, terrible, old man. Okay.
Unfortunately, it wasn't.
That's your one for today. You don't get any more. That's the only one. Right.
It wasn't intentional. But, is that giving up all hope when you respawn there? Or is that because it's in range? Does that count? How does that work?
That's a good point.
How would that work?
So they brought up service beacons years ago now, and they used respawning as part of it. So maybe perhaps like if a player Endeavor is like, let's say 1,000 kilometers away from your position, as a body, your distress beacon could call them out, and then they would then go okay, and then it would happen. But I feel like that was
a certain range.
Yeah,
I think they'd have to be a certain range to you for that to happen. But
that was years ago, though. I feel like
I was just gonna say, it almost makes like it sound like they're going to use the law of altered carbon in this SC universe, that you can be digitally backed up. That and you just they grow a new body, or they that would. Think about it. If you take altered carbon,
be cool.
It works in so many ways. Like, because then you don't really die. They just grow you a new body, and out you go. Hey, look, there's my dead body. Oh, and now I'm dead again, and off I go again. Like, it would work on so many levels. But I think a lot of people go
and the
cop
times
out
when you die and you come back with a new arm.
Yeah,
that's obviously you weren't dead. You were just unconscious dead, but.
Well, that is what you would. That is essentially what you would lose, because they talked about, like, if you lost your arm really, really badly, you might come back with a robot arm or something like that, or a new grafted on arm.
Or if you couldn't afford.
Yeah.
Or if you couldn't afford the thing, you might go for a prosthetic limb.
Yeah. So as Karadef says in your supporters chat, like cloning has been confirmed to not be a thing. Just because of like how the lore of SC is, like between today, present day, and wherever we are in Star Citizen 2950, there's been at least 2 dark ages, like medieval times, almost dark ages, where like we've had wars and it's kind of thrown us back. So it's not really been, like 900 years of prosperity and continuous growth. It's been, like 200 years and then like, bloody death, and then like 200 years and bloody death, until we've gotten to where we are. So things like high concept sci-fi things like teleporting and and cloning consciousness, I don't think is something that's within the purview of Star Citizen. But I'm talking too much. But one last thing. So like in the Death of a Spaceman article, Chris does say that, you know, like he talks about what you guys are working right now with mods and stuff. And while like I don't think it's been confirmed you could just like go up and electively get a bionic arm, like the way that he wants to suspend your disbelief when you do get, you know, killed or whatever, is that if you get headshot, then you wake up with like a metal jaw. If you you know, like if somebody kills you by, you know, like shooting you in the leg with like a M24 or whatever, then like you can get a prosthetic leg, and then like there might be different tiers of, you know, replication or whatever. So it will start from, you know, Recco Battalia's like metal leg, to synthing a whole new leg.
And so depending on how bad it is, you know, if you got the money, you can get a whole new body. Grown. If you're not rich.
It's definitely going to show who the veterans are as well, because people are going to actually carry the scars of their battles and so forth.
That's true.
But again, with the first-person shooter where you're dying so frequently, maybe that's the one exception. So when you're out in the normal universe and you run into someone and they have prosthetic, like, you can see that they were in a battle like that. But maybe clones could come in just on those first-person shooter battles. I don't know. It's a difficult one, and at the moment, the old Death of the Spaceman just seems a little bit too far distant from where they want to get with that first-person shooter mechanic. But as we've said, there's 3 different ways. They're all now a 4th, as we've kind of come up with. But maybe they can use all of them and make a hybrid.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it. I feel like Chris isn't the kind of person to like to dilute his vision when it comes to this kind of thing. I mean, he said so much like 2 weeks ago with the stuff about the room system, right? Like it's his game, and he doesn't really want to have to settle. So I don't think that he's going to settle on Death of a Spaceman, and rather his producers are going to have to step up to the mark and make something that will fit around it. And I think your examples and the ones we've come up with are pretty would be a good ground for it to work and stuff.
Well, you hopefully, know, like I was just going to say, hopefully we get an update to that and we can actually see what his thoughts are now. Things have progressed and gone down the line, so maybe we get an updated post on Death of a Spaceman.
And I think if Chris keeps his level high, his expectation high, even if it can't be reached, they're certainly going to get closer to that than they would if he just said, "Oh yeah, we just want this." Because if you're not, if the level's set at 50%, people are only going to aim for 50%. They're not going to. If you set the level for a pass to 75, they're going to aim to try and get 75. And so I think, while people complain that Chris has always, got this really high level, I reckon half of that is what's helped drag Star Citizen to advancement in terms of what we've got in terms of the world and other things.
100%.
Push the limits, and it's made the devs and the producers and all the coders and designers think outside the box. And that's how innovation happens. And that's why we've got all this tech that we just haven't seen before, because they've pushed the boundaries.
And I think that's why we've got, when you look at the Crytek engineers who came across, I think they have been unfettered. They weren't limited to saying, "Oh, you can only do that. You've now got free reign." And they went to town. They party time. "Oh, we can do this. We've had this we've had this idea for ages, but we weren't allowed to do it. But boom, now we got full planets. Oh yeah, hey, you want this one? Oh yeah, now you got."
Well, that's why things like procedural generation came in so early, Algared. We're thinking that was after release, weren't we? So.
Yeah, and even Chris said, that some of the things that they've got were things he wanted and hoped they'd get down the track, but the Crytek guy says, "Oh yeah, hey, have a look at this one. Oh, have a look at this one." And so, and that changed when they brought that in. Like that, the planetary tech changed the scope of the game. The second we had whole planets, and the fact that you could just fly around the whole planet and land anywhere on the planet, anywhere on Hurston, and get out and do stuff and get back in and fly elsewhere. That changed the game. That changed the whole scope of the game. And
the theory is it's changed more than just Star Citizen. The theory is that it changed Squadron as well.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Answer the Call 2016 happened before, like whatever dev in his free time made people to Planet.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden,
you think they're not going to add planetary combat in? And like, I tell you what I'm expecting. I've said this to Paul, and I think I've said this in an episode before. I'm actually expecting, like, the start of one of the latest Star Trek movies. I think it was I think it was the last one they did before they. And I'm talking about the ones done by Abrams. And there's that scene where that they're coming in, they're crashing into the planet, and like all the ejection pods are getting shot out and all that stuff. And he's like, literally, like, it pans back and you see the ship just like come in and crash. I'm expecting a scene like that in Squadron where you're trying to evacuate out of the ship as it's going down through atmosphere and everything's burning, and you're actually playing that. And how many? Like, normally that's a massive set piece in another game, and I'm not saying it's small in this game either. I should point that out. But because of the way they've designed it, it's just an almost natural
part of the game.
Like, because it's already all in there. They've already done that dynamically, so it's like this. And it's just going to look amazing. And even that that cinematic shot of the cargo crate coming out of the caterpillar. That is just that, but more. But it's you, not the cargo crate. So like,
exactly. No, 100%. I mean, to answer your question, I don't think that they're not going to have like a ground combat and transitions and stuff like that. What I'm saying is that, like, in 2015, they were like, answer the call next year, right, for Squadron 42 release. And then People of the Planet happened in 2016, and then all of a sudden we didn't hear a thing about Squadron. But we've seen the vertical slice, and the vertical slice has transitions. So like I guess the common thought between some people that I talk to is that, like, maybe perhaps like that is why Squadron didn't get released 2016.
I think it's been reworked and added and tweaked, and
but the tech that they had just changed the scope of everything.
So rather than everything being on ships or landing zones, now it's more dynamic, and you can they'll have stuff on land and air and sea maybe, I don't know, but it's definitely a bit more dynamic. All right, I think we'll kind of wrap up here. So let us know in the comments below your thoughts on the 4 different things that we've kind of brought up over Death of a Spaceman. Do you think it's going to kind of be hybrid? Do you think it'll be more one than the other? Do you think it would be cool to get an updated post from Chris to let us know his thoughts on how Death of the Spaceman is now working? We read every single comment. We might not reply to every single one, but we definitely read every single one. Thank you, Myre, for joining us today. Can you please let our viewers know where they can catch you, man, and what time you stream, etc., etc.?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Myre, a variety streamer that does mostly Star Citizen. You can find me at 2 p.m. BST, so I'm guessing that's like, what, 1 p.m. UTC every single day, daily streamer.
Yeah.
That's where you can find me.
Cool. All right.
But don't.
But don't. All right, so don't forget to like this video, dislike this video if you want to do that, all that type of stuff. Subscribe, Patreon, you know the usual jazz. That's not we're not here for the money, but that's just how you got to do things on the algorithm. He's been Algared, he's been Myre, I've been Execute, and we'll catch you in the next one.
We're out of here. Take care. God bless and be well.